Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to the Monday live stream. Just checking to see what's going on lately with everyone here. And one thing I wanted to kind of discuss in today's live stream is something that I kind of see quite often in the chat, or not the chat, but in the actual comments of each one of the videos that I post on the YouTube channel. And it's kind of going to illustrate a couple of examples about certain types of attitude that people have towards programming. And so you already see on right here, you kind of see how this person called Assumer Surf, he's kind of having the wrong attitude about just programming and how to learn, how to code. So his question is like, hi, would you still put in the time and learn Swift, or would you simply learn Flutter? So that's his question. And I think that a lot of people that ask this type of thing, especially when they're trying to learn something new, it seems like they're trying to find some easy way to get through programming without having to put in the effort. And that's the totally wrong way of thinking about things. So I don't know the true intent of this question, but it feels like this person just doesn't really want to put in the time to learn Swift. And I guess they think that learning Flutter is going to help you get a job somehow. So that's really not true. If you learn just Flutter, no one's really going to hire you. No company is just looking for a pure Flutter developer. That doesn't exist. You're still going to have to put in the time, which is about 1 or 2 years to learn Swift, how to build applications properly. And I really suggest that people out there don't really just think about technology like this. Companies that hire engineers and hire developers, they're really looking for people that can code and just learn any type of language that the company needs at that point in time. So yeah, that's kind of the overall message that I wanted to get across in today's live stream. And hopefully you guys can kind of understand what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, but anyhow, I'm kind of back from my Shanghai trip of teaching high school kids and some college kids how to build out iOS applications. I'm back in good old South San Francisco right now, which is kind of okay. I think Shanghai was really, really hot, but living there was a nice change of pace, nice change of scenery for me. And yeah, I'm totally back. Let me pull up the chat for you guys just to see what's going on. Chat. Let me see. Let me pull out the chat here. Pop it out. And here we go. The chat. Let's see. Where are you? Nope, that's probably not what I want, right? This is what I want. There it is. Hit the OK, and let's see. So how's everyone doing, by the way? I know it's been a while. I feel like every time I come back, there's always a bunch of new people that has just joined the channel, which is always pretty awesome. Looks like we have a super chat by, let's see, max speed 2K. You see my hair is really, really not fixed at all. So that's kind of why I'm wearing a hat today. So we have max speed 2K. Thank you very much for the $10 donation. If you guys have any questions, make sure to leave it underneath the super chat as well. That way I can kind of answer your questions properly. But if you want to just send me over a super chat as a donation, that's always a welcome thing as well. Okay, so what's going on today? Looks like we have about 90 people in the live stream. So before I get to any of the questions here, I wanted to go over a couple of other comments that I have on the channel. And let's see what I can go over today. Let me see if I can change this screenshot to this. Okay, so here's another question that kind of illustrates a lot of the comments that I get on the channel. So there's this person that says, so it will take 2 to 3 years to get a job doing iOS development. I see why so many people get into web development. And this is a question that I got on the video about the iOS roadmap. And you kind of see my response down at the bottom that I kind of tell them that, you know, there's just a lot of skills that you'll need to impress your potential employers. A lot of companies hire on typically potential that they see. And in truth, all development jobs are pretty similar. I think web development in 2018 has a lot to do with more kind of like how to learn this specific framework. For example, something like React.js or Angular. So those are the type of things that you'll have to like learn. Okay, so voice is very low. Let me see if I can turn it up. Okay, so I just turned up the gain a little bit. It should be better. Hopefully I'm not blowing your guys' ears out. Let's see, audio properties. So the thing about the live stream and the way I edit videos is I can actually modify the volume to the right levels, but during the live stream it's like a totally different setup. I don't know. Let me know if you guys want to figure out how to record videos and edit them for YouTube. I know a lot of people want to kind of start their own channels and do their own tutorials. And sometimes if you don't know what software to use, it can be a little overwhelming at first. So I think maybe I might do a couple of videos on how to set up things like the camera, how to integrate it into Premiere or Final Cut Pro, how to capture audio from these microphones here, pop, pop, and then how to piece everything together. Yeah, and then I guess the most important part about starting these channels is that you have to find your own workflow that works best for you. After having done this for about 2.5 years, I can put together a video relatively quickly that has okay quality. Because what I do right now is I no longer record onto the SD card of the camera, and I just record directly onto my computer, and that way I don't have to edit the videos and spend all this time. But yeah, okay, so let me go over one other comment right over here. Let's see, that's the right one. Okay, so here's another comment by Bessie Hillam, and I'm assuming it's a female. And so she says that you went a little bit fast for me at the end when you began and copy and pasted code around, which was hard to see on the screen, and it took me all day to debug what I did wrong. As with the visual notification with mouse clicks, it would be nice to see keyboard keys show up on the screen, command clicking, and other type of hints as to what I'm doing on the keyboard. So the hard part about making these YouTube tutorials is you have to kind of account for everyone's skill level differences. And I typically I err on the side of being fast rather than slow because, this is after all a YouTube video where you can decrease the speed, you can pause, you can go back. That's the great thing about video. You can just do whatever you want. You can jump around and you can just learn at your own pace. So I'm always going to be coding a lot faster than your typical instructor. And that's kind of what you have to get used to as well. When you're in the real world and when you're learning how to code, when you're working as an intern, we are not going to handhold you during the first couple of weeks. A lot of like senior managers that are in charge of kind of telling you what to do for your first couple of weeks, they're not going to go at a very, very slow pace. I mean, at the beginning, they're definitely going to show you how things work. But once you have your environment set up, you're going to have to learn things very, very quickly. And that's kind of one of the things that I didn't realize when I was starting my first job as a programmer. At the very beginning, you have to spend a lot of time to understand what the code base is doing, what the environment is actually set up to help you like test out. And yeah, you just have to learn really, really quickly. So that's the only thing I have to say about this comment, because um, in the very beginning of creating this YouTube channel, a lot of people were saying that I was going too fast, but now everything seems to be okay. People just get used to the pace of which you program, and I'm actually not even coding as fast as I can because I'm trying to narrate what's going on. So I can even go faster for people that think it's too slow. I know a lot of people already watched this video, the YouTube videos on 1.5 speed, which is what I do for other channels as well. So I think that's probably a smart thing to do. And let's see, I think I have one more comment that I wanted to talk about. So let's see what this one is. I think I wanted to mention how this is kind of like a bad question. So it says, hey Brian, in this video you have hard-coded your data set. Suppose if we need to fetch data from somewhere such as an API, then initially you kind of start out with an array that's empty, and then you fetch some data. You try to reload some rows and it crashes your app. And then blah, blah, blah. So how can we manage that? So this is what I would call like a bad question, because it doesn't really like describe what the problem is. And the only way that you can ask a good question is to provide the actual solution that you tried to do. So sometimes when you ask questions like this, it's really hard to answer with anything that makes sense. And yeah. Okay, so let me try to see what's going on in the chat today. Let's see. Hello, hello, hello. First time here, Robert. Well, welcome. For everyone else, that's the first time here. Thanks for the roadmap. Hopefully that roadmap was helpful. I don't know if people kind of understand the intent behind the roadmap, because I mean, like, hopefully people can realize that you don't need every skill in that roadmap to become an iOS developer. I know for me, I didn't have like maybe 70% of the items on that list. I did not understand, like I didn't have that knowledge before I became an iOS developer. So it's okay. It's just a roadmap to really becoming a more senior developer. So that's kind of what I have to say about that. Hola, really fantastic. What about Flutter? So again, I feel like most people that want to learn about Flutter, this is not everyone obviously, but most people just want to find a shortcut to like knowing how to put an app on the iOS phones. Having worked with Flutter, I can't say that I'm really like on the Flutter train. It seems really premature. Some of the things like keyboard management is really just impossible to do in Flutter right now. So I try to stay away from it when such features like that are still broken. When will the new iOS tutorial series come? So I have a new course planned out for the website, and it's gonna be about, I think, MVVM and unit testing. And a lot of people have been asking for that, so it's gonna be a somewhat shorter course. And I think some people, or most people, should like it, because I don't know why. I think unit testing is very important, and is not a whole lot of information on how to do unit testing properly in iOS. So I'm going to try to provide some courses on how to do unit testing. Learn Swift. Good. There's only one way to learn, and you gotta work your ass off. Yeah. So that's. I think I've been working really hard for the last, I would say, probably 10, 12 years. And yeah, for me, it's kind of easy to just spend my time in front of the computer and learn how to code. It's an easy thing for me because I think just finding answers on the internet and applying it to your own projects, it's a fun thing for me. So that's kind of why I like it. Swift all the way, native all the way. Yeah, if you're really trying to find a job as a developer, I would say go native all the way. No one's really going to hire a Flutter developer in 2018. Maybe in like 2020, 2022, that's kind of when those jobs will be available. Hello from Belgium. Well, hello from San Francisco, Bobby Ewing. Do you really suggest iOS developers should be having a thorough knowledge on data structures? I guess this is another question that's kind of strange. Like, no one's going to hire you if you don't know data structures, right? So that's that. How could you create an amazing user interface without using Storyboard? Well, I think we've been doing that for the last 2.5 years. So if you want to watch all the videos on the channel, then you can learn how to do that. Data structures are important. Again, you will not get hired if you don't understand data structures. The whole point of data structures is how you can put together an application that makes sense. And that's it. If you can't do that, then no one's going to hire you. Asian Beast. Hello from UAE. I don't know where UAE is actually. Why don't I do data structures and algorithms? So I think way back in the day, I did a bunch of data structures and algorithm videos. And I actually like doing those videos a lot because I like to talk about more advanced topics on this channel. Like, there's a lot of YouTube iOS channels that don't really go into advanced topics. And yeah, I think a lot of people enjoyed those videos. Maybe I'll start doing them again. I think one of the reasons why I stopped doing data structures is because I don't know why I stopped. I think I ran out of ideas at that point in time. But it's all there's always things to talk about. Android Studio or Xcode? So that's kind of a good question. Android Studio or Xcode? So one huge pain about Android Studio for me and for my computer is that it actually Android Studio becomes really slow after I think half an hour of just typing out code. And I don't really know why Android Studio is so slow, but it becomes really annoying and frustrating to use. Xcode has been pretty solid. Like, it's not extremely fast, but it never slows down, so it's really consistent. And so I guess if I were to grade Android Studio and Xcode on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give Android Studio like an 8, and I would give Xcode like an 8.5. So they're pretty close. I would give something like Visual Studio Code an almost, I would say 9. So I would prefer Visual Studio Code over all of these editors. Any good book on learning iOS dev with Swift 4, focusing on code rather than storyboard? I would just say take all of the courses on the website, so you can find the links to the courses at letsbuildthatApp.com. You won't really find any books on how to code. And I think the problem with, or it's not really a problem, but the reason why books need to sell, right? You need to sell books when you write them. And it's really hard to sell a book with just text. Like, it's easier to sell a book that kind of shows a storyboard and how to put together an app that way. Your hair is good. Trust me, your students know you better more than anything. Yeah. Good old coffee. Ah. So I was thinking about buying like a separate coffee maker. Currently, right now, because I'm so lazy, I make coffee just from little instant coffee packs. And while the coffee is not good, they're they're like it's drinkable. So that's kind of why I make it. My brother, he has like a total like a full on legit coffee maker machine. He grinds his own beans, and the coffee that comes out of that is like totally amazing. Um, Maybe some of these one of these days I'll buy a real coffee maker. It's really early in San Francisco right now. It's about 8 a.m. And I think I turned the heater on a little bit too high. Kind of burning up here. Completed the algorithm series. That's good. That's good. Let me know if more people want to learn about algorithms. I think it's really important. So Mustafa says, got 2 internships because of you. I got them because I learned not to use the storyboards. Yeah, it's. I think once you get off the storyboard, then your iOS skill level just like it just skyrockets and accelerates so fast. If you just keep on using the storyboard, like you really don't get anywhere. And it's like having experience like doing this for 10 years, it's really easy to see that learning, that acceleration in the learning from a student. So if you keep fighting this like this thing about not using code, then you're really doing a disservice for yourself. Tips on LinkedIn. I don't really use LinkedIn anymore because I really hate recruiters. I think recruiters are just horrible. So I don't do that. Training on iOS development. Please suggest for beginners. So there's a course on the website for beginners on how to put together like a Kindle like app with a table view and a collection view, and you should really check that out. I think. I'm trying to turn that off, and let's see. Do I want to go over every question today? Hard to find a job in China. Yeah, I feel like programming jobs are just not as easy to get in China. Bob Chan, the painting on the wall is animation Steins Gate. Yeah, one of my favorite shows, favorite anime series. I am in America, yeah. Do Rails in China now. So I feel like Rails kind of died off in the Silicon Valley. A lot of people still probably use Rails, but it's not as hot as I think 5 years ago, Rails was really hot, and now it's kind of dipping. But it's okay. Yeah. So Harold says that, hi Brian, amazing videos, very concise and to the point. Have you tried Swift on the server side? So one thing about Swift is that user timeout. Okay. One thing about Swift server side is that what do I want to say about Swift server side? So there's a couple of frameworks that you can use, right? Vapor and Kitora from IBM. I don't really recommend learning Swift for server side, actually. The problem with Swift on server side is there really isn't any like widely available documentation for server side, so it's hard to learn if there aren't a lot of good tutorials out there. The second thing about Swift server side is that, let's kind of face it, Xcode really sucks. So for anyone that hasn't used another like IDE code editor, I recommend just opening up something such as Visual Studio Code and try to put together a Node.js app using Express. And you'll realize that the Node.js Express server that you can write, it only takes like 3 lines of code to get everything going. And to build out a couple of different routes using Node.js, it's like super easy. You don't have to rely on Xcode. So yeah, I really do not recommend learning server-side Swift. It's just so much easier to learn either Node, Rails, or even some other language. And I suggest once you learn something like Node or Rails, then you learn server-side Swift. That's the route that I would recommend. Hey, Kevin. Good to see you. Future of Android app development. So I've always wanted this channel to be more than iOS development. And, you know, over the last 6 months, you can kind of see that we've expanded into web development, React, some Node, some MySQL, touched on some Objective-C for a little bit. And then the last 10 videos that I did was mostly on Android and how to use Firebase and Kotlin to build on a chat application. So this channel has always been on the mission of kind of touching on every subject on the full stack level. And for everyone that's out there that wants to become a full-time developer, the best thing that you can do for your career, even in the beginning, is to learn full stack development. And that's because when you're going into an interview, like most of the senior engineers that hold these interviews, they're always very impressed if you're just really willing to learn the entire stack, because when they hire you as, let's just say, a junior iOS developer, they eventually want you to move on to the entire stack and be able to manage the entire code base, and then also mentor new employees that get hired on. So that's kind of what I suggest. What's my best YouTube channel? Right now, I don't know if I have a lot of YouTube channels that I watch. I think I've been watching a lot of basketball YouTube channels, but aside from that, nothing else that's really consistent. New York City for junior front-end devs. I think New York City has a pretty good tech scene, so it shouldn't be that difficult to get a job in New York City, right? Pixels. What are my opinions about Flutter? So I think one thing that I do regret making on this channel are those Flutter videos, because you get a lot of these Flutter and React Native related questions, and I'm not a really strong believer in cross-platform development. I think eventually what happens is you kind of see, well, when someone tells you how amazing cross-platform is, they only list out the pros of that approach, and the cons are actually they're really big cons to cross-platform, and those cons are so strong that sometimes you don't really the benefits do not outweigh the I guess the negatives of cross-platform. So what apps have you built in the past and are working on? I haven't really worked on many apps in the past. I think building out this YouTube channel is what I would call the last app that I built out. Waiting to buy your courses on server-side Swift. Yeah, I don't know if I'll make a Swift server-side course. Maybe. Advanced Swift videos. Yeah, we'll see. Comes not sure if you know. Yeah, I know Patrick, the tech lead, ex Google. It seems that to get on top section, the secret is to build apps that become famous. Your thoughts? Um, it really depends on what your intentions are for learning Swift. I think most people that watch this channel just want to become iOS developers full time at least, and uh, like to get your app on the top echelon or on the front page of the App Store. I don't think, like, even for developers that have 10 or 20 years of experience, that's a really hard thing to do. So it's mostly about luck, I think. Yeah, it's hard to just tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna make an app that becomes famous, and then I'll just do it. That's really difficult. It's kind of like hitting the lottery. Abdi wasn't expecting this live stream on a Monday morning. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to do it either, but just had some time, decided to drop in. Wanted to drop iOS develop in China, but I don't know what I can do else. 理科难. It really depends. Like, I think China doesn't really have a strong Swift development culture. Every time I go back to China to teach, I think people tell me that Objective C is a stronger language there, and most companies use Objective C. They also use cross-platform React Native because it's easier to update. So, yeah, there's that. Have you ever thought about taking one of your completed apps and writing unit and UI tests for those? Of course, doing a video on it. Yeah, I've thought about it. And yeah, the next course that I release will be on unit testing. So you'll kind of see what goes on behind the thought process of writing out test code. I don't think a lot of developers really understand what kind of mindset you have to be in when you write out tests. And one of the things that really turns people towards writing out code entirely is because writing out tests is much easier if you just do everything in code. I think. I might be wrong, but that's kind of my opinion. Data analysis. I would say that I think Python is one of those languages. I'm not really a big data analysis guy, so I probably can't give a meaningful explanation. I recently stopped coding in Swift and moved to Flutter and really like it. I want to know your opinion about Flutter. I guess do whatever you want, really. One thing that I would say is don't really listen to anyone. People that are online that give their opinions about things. I mean, everyone's situation is different, so just do whatever you like. Generic videos, deep dives into advanced concept would be much appreciated. Yeah, I really like talking about advanced things on this channel. I really just try to skip over like how to hook up an IP outlet. I know a lot of people do those videos. It's just insanely boring. I would just rather kill myself if I had to do one of those videos again. iOS development is tired and you hard to find a job. Very difficult to get a junior iOS dev job in NYC. NYC is a senior market. I think you can probably say the same thing about the Silicon Valley, but it's probably not as bad out here. I was having this conversation yesterday about trying to get a junior job, a junior development job, and it seems like it's just easier to get an internship first, and that kind of starts off in college. So it's a really long journey to becoming a dev. It takes a lot of effort. Are there new lessons on applications of Android Kotlin? Lately we've been doing a lot of Kotlin videos. Feeling I don't remember stuff about specific programming language. Afraid to apply for jobs because I have a feeling that I will know nothing at the interview. Well, that really has nothing to do with programming languages. Um, it really has more to do with a lot of people's different kind of mindsets and mentality about going into interviews. So, for example, I've never really had this fear of going into an interview because, I know what I know, and I don't really get psyched out, and I don't feel the pressure of an interview all that much anymore, at least. And yeah, I think people just think too much about interviews. Like, you're either gonna get the job or you don't get the job, and those are the two outcomes. So what's the point of worrying about whether or not you're gonna fail? If you're gonna fail, you're gonna fail. There's nothing that's going to change the outcome of that. And that's the mentality that I have. You're gonna have to go through like 5 to 10 job interviews before you get your first job, anyways. So what's the point of being overly concerned about such a thing, such as like interview pressure? Which is better to continue Swift development or move to Python? Well, this is kind of like a question. What is better, going to college or eating cookies or something? There's totally different things. Advanced topics in Swift, there's just too much to cover. To not worry about copyright, what kind of size do I get my animations and pictures of for your app? So I use this thing called Envato. So maybe I'll just type it out. There's this website called Envato that provides a lot of these images and royalty-free assets, and that's kind of what I use. I don't use AngularJS. How many projects did you had in your very first portfolio? So before I got my very first iOS job, I think I had about, I would say like 3 or 4 different portfolio apps. And yeah, I think those portfolio apps I spent about 2 months on. Yeah, roughly about 2 months. And they were extremely visual. So way back then, I think it was 2008, 2009. That's kind of when I started building out my portfolio kind of seriously. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. But yeah, do you recommend any podcasts? I think the Ray Wenderlich podcast is really good. They discuss a lot of advanced topics there. Do you intend on making more Android stuff? I really enjoyed your Kotlin series and Node.js as well. Yeah, I want to make more Kotlin videos, more Android videos. And we'll see. We'll see how far I get with that. What's my favorite food? I don't really have a favorite food, and that's kind of because in the Bay Area, in the Silicon Valley, there's so many different places that you can eat at that it's really easy to just get whatever type of food you want. So it's hard to just say that, oh, my favorite thing is this, because one week you'll eat that type of cuisine for an entire week, and then you'll get sick of it. Upcoming Swift tutorials, yeah. I want to do some more unit testing and reactive Swift, all that. What do you think about Russian developers? I think they're really, really smart. Smart bunch. Here for Kotlin. Kevin V says, we are hungry for a new iOS course. Yeah, I think you're not the only one. And we'll see. Quite a few students on the website, on the channel. So complete your core data course, now learning from Instagram Firebase course. Cool. One of the things that's great about the core data course is that you kind of get to learn how to put together your own database and how to create your own models and attributes and properties, and how to persist data into SQL. And yeah, I think knowing all of those core concepts really, really takes your development skills to another level. I want to thank you to motivate me to drop down Storyboard. I would like your advice how to make beautiful code. You can just do. It takes a couple of years to learn how to code. Once you get your very first job as a developer, you'll realize how bad your code is. And everyone goes through this. The first couple of jobs that you have, you'll go through a lot of code reviews, and everyone's going to tell you how bad your code sucks. Well, they're not going to tell you, but they're going to point out all of the mistakes that you have as a junior developer. Do I have at least 500K in savings? Do I? I don't know. Maybe, I guess. I don't even know how much money I have right now. I'm from China. No, not from China. 我不是来自中国的。但是我每年应该算每年吧，因为我去上海去教 iOS development 教课吧。What are your thoughts using AWS as your backend for iOS apps, Google Cloud? I currently use Heroku for all of my apps, and Heroku is kind of using AWS underneath the hood. So the reason why I don't use AWS directly is because I don't really want to manage my own box, and I just let Heroku do that. I just pay them, I think, $25 a month to host the Let's Build That App .com server, and everything works out. I don't have to worry about my server on AWS going down. So David Arredondo says that, do I have any playlists for beginners in app development? I see a lot of videos on the channel, but don't know where to start. So this is another question that I get on the channel a lot. Like, where do you start and how do I get into development? Well, the thing about development is, like, you have to really understand what you're interested in learning. And you have to learn from that kind of perspective. So for example, my channel, it's not really traditional education where you start from topic A, lecture 1, going up to lecture 10, and then after these 10 lectures, you kind of understand anything. I don't really teach it that way. What we do on this channel is we build out applications from a context of, this is a real world useful application, and you have to learn these core concepts in this style of app. And it's a lot more engaging that way, and you really start to see what's behind all the code. So that's kind of how it is. You just have to pick what you are interested in, and you go from there. Some good resources on how to learn to code without using Storyboard. The only thing that's available on the internet is this channel and also the website. So let's build that app.com. A lot of useful courses on how to build out everything with code. Aside from that, there really isn't any available resource online. Test-driven development on Swift and iOS. Seems there are a few videos or articles on the matter. Yeah, a lot of good articles, but not a lot of good demonstrations as to how to do TDD in Swift. Yeah. Blockchain development. I think every year there's always some kind of hot buzzword, and this year it's probably blockchain, machine learning, deep learning, AR, virtual reality, VR. So those are the 4 topics. I think blockchain is probably going to go away. That's kind of my guess as to what's going to happen with blockchain. Okay, so Leon Silicon says that I have an Android developer job interview coming up. Do I have any good resources that I can recommend to study? I need help. I don't know. It's I haven't done these type of interviews for so long. I feel like they're almost always going to test you on something like data structures. So, like, I don't think any company really cares about if you know how to put together an activity, because everyone knows how to do that. So it's all going to come down to like the algorithm questions and how to put together your application using the correct data structures. Steins Gate poster behind you. I think season 2 is out of Steins Gate. We'll see if I have the time to watch it. I was job for about 3 years. Cool. When I start a project for a client, do I always use the latest? Yeah, you're pretty much always going to use the latest Swift version unless the client wants you to use Objective-C, which is not all that uncommon. Keep skipping right over my questions. Must be fate. Which part of China? Yeah. Yeah. Again, I'll put together a unit testing course in the future, and yeah. Nanjing. Is it possible to set a career in iOS development? Sure. Both iOS and Android. Yeah, plenty of people do that right now. Landside says that I live in Guangzhou. iOS development in China has not been very good in recent years. That's sad to hear, but I would say that that's not really the exception, but rather that's the rule. Most of development really happens in the Silicon Valley and other, I guess, hot spots for tech locations in the United States. And yeah, that's kind of why everybody heads over to San Francisco, Silicon Valley, because it's much easier to get a tech job here. I am that called Lao Wai. Can you give us a brief roadmap for computer engineering science majors? Goal as software developer. Well, if you look at the entire syllabus and curriculum for CS majors in college, then you can get a pretty good idea that way. I probably don't recommend. There's a lot of things that I don't recommend in a standard college education. But I think that's a video left for another day. Li Tao Wan. I think that's how you pronounce these 3 words. Killian says that, hey Brian, just got a job from a student to a mid-level iOS developer. Your courses helped me a lot on this road. Thanks for creating such value. Cool. Yeah, I think I've seen Killian in a couple of the comments on the website courses, so that's awesome. You'll find that like iOS development isn't actually that hard. You just really need to have someone show you how to do it. And I really wish that something like my channel was available 10 years ago. It would have made my life a lot easier. Yeah. So do I use LLDB commands when debugging my apps? I think the command that I use the most is probably like print object. And there's another command that prints out the full description of a particular instance, but I think I just use PO. It helps me out enough. Would I ever jump into a project if I only have the basic knowledge on how to accomplish it? It really depends. I think that's a good question. It really depends on what that technology is. So if it's mobile development and I only know relatively like a small amount, let's say React Native, right? I'm not a really big React Native developer. And if someone wants to hire me to actually put together or to build out their React Native project, I would say maybe if I want to take the job, probably like a 5 out of 10 or maybe a 6 out of 10. And yeah, I probably wouldn't feel too confident about building it out correctly. I probably would be able to do it. Just it would take a lot of time for me to ramp up on the new skills required. Theo says, "How old were you when you got your first iOS job?" My first iOS job, I think I was 26. Yeah, probably 26. Obviously, I'm a lot older now. Flutter with Firebase. I think for the Flutter content, I might just make a course on the website, and if people want to learn how to put together Flutter, I'll just probably put it on the website as a paid course. The thing about the YouTube channel is that sometimes you have to worry about what type of content that you put on here. And some people will start to unsubscribe, and people come here for a certain thing and they're no longer getting that type of video, and that typically leads to user attrition, and that's not fun. Doing things like PWA, hybrid, nope. So just asking that question now, you'll realize that in the last 20 years or so, hybrid technology has always been there, but native development has been strong for the last 20 years and will always be strong. 中国人 can you make Flutter tutorial with Firebase? Probably not on the channel. Guangzhou, a student. Let's see. Currently studying Chinese. Also building something on my own. Do you like Steins Gate? Yeah, Steins Gate is pretty awesome. Are coding bootcamps still a feasible way to get into the tech industry? I think coding bootcamps are still they're still okay. I would say that if you so here's a couple of reasons why you should not go to coding bootcamps. If you don't understand, if you don't like to code, if you can't sit in front of a computer for let's say 5 hours and code the entire day, I would suggest not attending a coding bootcamp. This is not for you. If you already know how to code pretty well and you know how to build together, if you know how to Google solutions on your own, I would say coding bootcamps are probably not advanced enough for you, but they're still okay. And let's see, if you are ready to give everything that you can to a coding bootcamp, like I would say 16 hours of your entire day for the next 3 months, then yes, I would say go to coding bootcamp. And I think some of the coding bootcamps have a good placement process post-graduation, so I think it's still viable. Yeah, plenty of people are doing both. Wow, 他是台湾的，他是台湾的。Now, one thing that's awesome about the Chinese language is that one character, or these 5 lines, or these 5 characters in this one line, you can kind of see how concise and compact these 5 characters are. And if you were to type out this whole thing in standard English, it would be a little bit longer. So I really appreciate how concise the Chinese characters are. It just makes it really easy to save space. Can you speak Chinese? Are you nope. Have I ever flown out for an interview for a big company? I personally haven't. Um, remember there was a company in New York that wanted to fly me out for an interview, and I think this was around when I first started this channel, so roughly 2 years ago. And this company, I believe at the time, was an e-commerce company, some kind of online shopping company. And the reason why I didn't go out to New York for that interview was because I had already built out an e-commerce app and I didn't really want to build out yet another one. So that is kind of why I decided not to accept that offer. So this is a very silly question. How much time does it take to learn Java? Any idea? Like, I guess for people that don't understand programming, then they'll kind of ask these silly questions. And the reason why it's silly is kind of like, how much time does it take to learn basketball? How much time does it learn to become a chef? That's the same exact question. Like, how do you answer those questions? There's really no correct answer to that. What is my time now? 8 a.m. in the morning. Should a beginner Android pick up Kotlin or Java? Whatever you want, whatever you find easier. I think you'll yeah. For people that ask these questions about what's the right thing to do, just always ask yourself what's the easier thing for me to do right now. Then that's the correct solution. So, for example, the path that a more senior developer will take is totally different from a beginner developer. And senior programmers will always pick like the solution that will scale in the long run. But beginner developers shouldn't consider what will scale in the long run. Just pick whatever you like to do right now. Facebook recent headlines in the news. I'm not sure exactly what the headlines you're referring to are. If you are referring to the headlines regarding the privacy scandals and their new privacy policies, I don't think it's going to negatively affect React as a development library. It doesn't really concern their technology as much as their brand, I would say. Let's see. Losing interest, but I don't want to program. Any motivational tips? I think we all fall into these certain ruts where we don't really enjoy what we're doing anymore, and this doesn't have to strictly do with programming itself, but even things like eating, right? It's such a universal thing to enjoy, like consuming food. But even eating food, you get kind of tired of eating the same thing over and over. So you just have to try something different and get back into the groove that way. Come to Matt says, did you come to the U.S. at a very young age? How did you learn both languages so well? I'm not sure if this question is directed to me. Maybe it is, probably is. So I was born and raised in Sacramento, California. Sacramento is the capital of California. But at a very early age, young age, you grow up with the languages that you're surrounded with in your environment. So basically, my two parents, they spoke kind of like, I guess I'll just call it Chinese. And so you grow up with what your parents grow up with. And then I had all older siblings in my family. We all spoke English to each other. So you kind of grow up with this dual language environment, which really enables you to pick up a lot of different ways of kind of like communicating with people. So that's kind of what happens. By classmates, Xiao. Can you read Chinese characters? Oh, I can, but interviewed recently. I've been interviewed recently, and they said that UI kit and stuff is great, but I lack in the knowledge of basics. So my question is, what are the basics? For now, I'm learning data structures and algorithms. Yeah, I think those are the fundamentals that you have to have a solid foundation on. So, for example, you have to understand how to write functions, classes, variable declarations, and how to use things like dictionaries and maps. There's a lot of things to learn. Love your channel. Awesome. All my experience development is running a marijuana site. It's very successful, but now I'm trying to get a job. Do you think it's okay to be honest about my experience when searching for work? This is it's kind of a tricky question to answer. So if I were to run a marijuana site that actually delivers marijuana, I guess, I don't think in California that's necessarily a bad thing, because California is such an open state. I think New York is probably okay as well. I would just say that I worked for a marijuana site, and all of the technologies that I learned and all the features that I built out for this website, you just list those out. No one really cares like really what type of website it is. Especially recruiting managers and engineering managers, we're all just focused on if you can help us build out the features that we want. That's mostly what we're concerned with. In China, 加班 every day. Yeah, so I guess you do a lot of overtime in China. Could foreign students get internships at Yelp, Google? I mean, not most, but a ton of interns are international students at these major companies in Silicon Valley. Yeah, 天天加班. Do you really build your website using third-party libraries? No. I mean, I don't really know what a third-party library is in terms of websites. I think my site uses React.js as the major third-party library, and I guess that's it really. I built the backend all kind of custom code, which is probably something that I would not do if I were to do it again. But yeah, the website was something that I built out over the span of 2 years, so it takes a lot of time to put together something like that. How old was I when I got my first tech job? What was it, 22? Yeah, 22. Maybe it was 23. Yeah, I started out as a support engineer for a tech company. It was a lot of fun. Got to fly around the United States. I think I flew to Honolulu, Hawaii once for a support training job. It was fun. I kind of wish I can go back to those days where I didn't really have to care so much. I think when you're younger, you just feel like you're in that mode where you're just learning how to do things, and life is easier when you're younger. I think as you get older, you start to be more concerned about things that are out of your control, which is kind of silly. Big fan of your videos. Could you possibly do a video on how to make select text in text view clickable in Swift? I think maybe. I think there are some videos on how to do that already. Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. Swift for server side. Again, I'm not a big Swift server side person. I would recommend people to learn something like Node or Rails before Swift server side. Yeah. Again, Xcode is really slow. That's why I would not recommend Swift server side. What do I think about having an open source project and let your audience participate? I think that's a good idea. I don't know how I would pull that off though. Open source project. So maybe some kind of pod. Maybe I can create an open source pod like the LPTA components package that I created a while back, and to open source that for people to actually contribute to. Wouldn't be such a bad idea. Would I be able to manage that entire project though? I'll probably have to get some people to moderate that project. I don't think I have enough time to go over all of the pull requests that will be submitted. And you also have to consider all of the testing that is required to get one of these projects like that going. Not easy, but a good idea. A really good idea, I think. What do you think about React Native? Have I tried it? I'm not a big cross-platform guy, so, you know. Just watch one of your clip. The background music is too high, pretty much covered your voice. Yeah, I mean, as you can tell, not every video is perfect, so. Do you like Xbox? React Native bugs everywhere. Yeah, bugs in React Native are really difficult to fix. That's what I hear about it. Microsoft Azure. I haven't really done any research on this Microsoft Azure platform, but whatever. Should we use Storyboard anymore? Again, any question where you are asking someone for their opinion, just do whatever's easier for you. That's a solution that you should always come to. Is web dev slowly dying? Well, have you noticed that we are on this website called youtube.com? It takes, thousands of developers just to maintain this website. So it's not going anywhere. Start a bootcamp. Most importantly, you have to showcase apps that you've built. Yep. Suggested language useful for iOS development. I guess you should learn JavaScript for iOS development. Maybe that'll help you a lot. If you have a choice between NoSQL and SQL, which would you pick? I would always choose SQL. So the website that letsbuildthatApp.com that uses SQL to manage all the data. NoSQL is really hard to actually to make sense of the data. You really need the relations between your data. Best source for learning Kotlin? Well, google.com is, I hear, a pretty good resource for that. I love programming. Went to the Dev Bootcamp SF. Really love coding 15 hours a day. Downside to bootcamps is that they give you a unrealistic sense of your skill level. I can kind of see what you are saying with this statement. I think the downside that you're mentioning here, unrealistic sense of your skill level. I think your expectations are a little, what's the right word I want to say here? They're skewed towards what you think you're investing in. But yeah, I kind of do agree. Like, the way that they sell the bootcamp is like, oh, you're going to become a a really good full-time web full stack developer after you complete our bootcamp, right? That's kind of the way to sell it. And going in, you probably should already have an understanding that, yeah, marketing works that way. Once you graduate the bootcamp, you're still a very, very junior level, like extremely junior level. I would say that it probably takes, I don't know, 2,000 to 5,000 hours to become a decent developer, is what my opinion says. God bless America. 我该如何开始编程? So how do I start learning how to program? Well, that's a good question. You just got to pick up a coding language and just start programming, really. I would say that the first thing about programming is you have to kind of realize what the point of programming is. So, for example, for me, I wanted to learn programming because I wanted to build out some simple games in Flash. And so this required me to learn about for loops, how to draw graphics on the screen using loops, and how to use arrays, how to use variables. So that's kind of how I got started. So you have to find your own door, your own window into programming. Everyone starts out differently. Some people will use these Raspberry Pi Arduino boards, and you just gotta find your own way into it. God bless me. 学 Java 吧，学 Java 吧，工资高。So Keenan says to learn Java because the salary is high. I think Java probably pays better in China. I don't really have any type of research to back that up. But in the United States, Java is still one of the relatively higher paying languages to program in. However, the downside of Java is that not a lot of startups will be using Java. So if you want to work for a kind of a fast-paced startup company, then you'll have to know more than Java. And if you know Java really well, then there's really no doubt that you can pick up something else really quickly. That's a great thing about programming. Most of the skills that you learn in one language is totally transferable to a second language. Would you rather learn more at a large company or have a bigger responsibility at a startup? Do both. So, spend a couple of years at a large company and then spend a couple of years in a startup. That's what I would recommend. Complete e-commerce app would be nice to learn. So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And I guess, yeah, hopefully by the end of 2018, is that this year? I can put out what I want to put out there. By classmate 小，在中国后端发展空间大。So I guess in China, backend development is a bigger technology to get into because there's, I guess backend development is bigger there. Best technologies to make a carpooling application. So carpooling applications require a lot of like real-time notifications. So PHP I don't think is all that great for real-time messaging. So for example, you have let's just take the Uber app for example, right? You have a driver and then you can have potentially, let's say 10 drivers and 10 riders. So if all these apps are open at the same time, they have to be able to communicate with each other real time. So you have to really think about how what kind of server you need to enable that type of functionality. 柯南里是到处都需要 Java。iOS 没饭碗了，老铁。 Uh, yeah, I think that's it's really strange because when I go back to China, iOS doesn't seem like a big technology to get into in China. However, when you come to the United States, it's totally different. iOS is hugely sought after as kind of a commodity here in the Silicon Valley, at least. So it's if you know how to build iOS applications well, then you can definitely get a job out here at many different companies. However, the Silicon Valley is the exception to the rest of the world. So if you're lucky enough to come here, then you'll have a lot of good opportunities. 是啊，感觉要从事后端了。Do you know the tech lead? Yeah, tech lead is a great guy. Java Nilby. Could you please make online shopping app with Firebase and core data? Um, I think so. One thing about Firebase that I don't really like, maybe that's too strong of a word, but some of the issues that come up using Firebase is that because Firebase is managed by Google, I really don't have control over how the Firebase libraries evolve over time. So maybe I'll do something very simple like a Node.js backend, and that way the backend for Node.js stays the same over the span of like 2 years. I really hate having to update all this code for all the courses. It gets really tedious after a while. Can you do some Java lessons? Can I do some Java lessons? I don't think I'll ever do Java lessons unless it's maybe uh what should I say? Android related. I think way back in the day I built out some I can't even remember what these libraries are called for Java. There's a Jetty, a server called Jetty that was kind of fun to work with. I think I did some things with like Hibernate and J2EE and all that good stuff. I can't really say that I enjoyed it. How many projects does someone off a bootcamp self-taught have under their belt before applying? As much as you can, I would say. Did I use any sources for learning Kotlin besides the Kotlin documentation? I think I just Googled everything. I don't know. Do people really not know that Google is a pretty good resource? I mean, obviously you do because you found this channel, right? Um, I think for people that don't understand how blog posts and how programming works in 2018, it's kind of hard. Like I understand that it's difficult to understand what code does. Uh, yeah, I think after all these years, learning how to read blog posts has become much easier for me. So like it's really easy to search for code that helps you figure out how the Kotlin language works. So the question here is, what's a great place for me to branch out if I don't want to program anymore? Um, People become program managers after a while, after they realize that they don't want to code full time. Yeah, so there's programming managers and or product managers as well, and that's because product managers will help communicate between the developers and the stakeholders of the company and what the next features need to be. So they can kind of like understand what's needed on both sides of the fence. I like tutorials. There are too many beginner level videos on YouTube. Yours are in depth and useful. Yeah. You'll find that most people that do YouTube are kind of they're not extremely advanced in terms of programming. And most of the advanced topics in programming are they're really hard to kind of discuss because they're so in depth and you have to have so much context before before you can even speak about it. So it's hard to talk about in-depth topics, and I try to make it as relatable as possible on this channel. And hopefully, I'm doing an okay job. Should developer learn about AI? Yeah, probably. In 2018, seems like an important thing. Wow, so many questions. Do you find Node.js hard to learn? Not really. So I think here's what I'll say about these questions about learning programming. I think I didn't realize this until maybe after fourth, fifth year of working professionally, that you really have to be able to self-learn and be self-taught even though you're on the job. So learning Node.js, like I didn't really realize that it was actually really simple to learn new technologies. The way that you Google search is really important. How you start off learning something is also like super crucial to your success in learning these topics. So for example, when you're trying to figure out this new language, right? You don't want to start off on something that's really difficult. Like always just try to learn the variable declarations, for loops, functions, and classes. Always learn those first basics. What do I think about Flutter? I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion on it. Just do whatever you enjoy. Should you stop using Storyboard to build an app? Again, just do whatever you enjoy, and you'll be fine. How do I learn new technology and framework? Yeah. Again, do people realize that Google is a really strong resource? Maybe I should do a video on me learning something completely new, and then you'll kind of understand my process in picking up a new technology. It's really no different. Like I do the exact same things that other people do. I start off with the keyboard, which I have this keyboard here. I type in google.com, and then I say getting started with technology X, and then you'll find the first tutorial for that technology. You read it, and then you try out the couple of examples that they have, and then there you go. That's how you get started. So I get started just the same way everyone does. Yeah. Tell us how. Like I literally do not do anything special when I'm learning new technologies. I guess it seems like I know what I'm doing, but there's a lot of preparation that goes behind each video. Do you make us money from making your own training, etc. website from your day job? Do you still have a day job? So I don't have a day job other than making these videos right now. I would say that in terms of financially, in terms of finance, I probably the money that comes from the training on the website, it really depends from day to day. Yeah. I think working a full-time job comes with its own stress that I don't really want to deal with anymore. Tell us step by step, how do you learn new technology? It all starts with Google, buddy. HoloLens. Yeah. I think I'm gonna check out of here. So I've been on for about an hour and a half. I think most people are kind of filing out of the room. We have about 120 people still watching. So if there's any more interesting questions that you would like to type out in the chat, maybe I will get to it. But I think I'm all out of the things I want to talk about in today's video. I guess in China, Java devs get more in Shenzhen. Lots of tech companies located here. Other cities, iOS Android salary is more or less the same. So I saw an interesting comment about this Steven Mischuk video. He mentioned that NoSQL Firebase database are for hippies as devs, and they often mess up. And I think I saw this video from Steven. I think the difficult parts about NoSQL is that your data becomes really unorganized after a while. And when you use standard SQL, like a structured SQL database, it's really hard to mess up your data. That's a great thing about it. And it's really similar to programming using JavaScript versus a strongly typed language. So you'll get the benefits of having strongly typed data if you use a standard SQL database. So that's the advantage there. Yep, I've done contracting, don't really enjoy it. It's difficult for a foreigner to find iOS developer job in US. Probably you have to have sponsorship with H1B, which isn't always the easiest thing to get. Have I made Node.js easier in your REST? Yeah, making that Node.js REST API series. Hopefully that was helpful. Hello from Indonesia. Awesome. Do I enjoy my job? I have to say I learned a lot from your videos. Keep up the work. I think working a standard developer job is different. I find a lot of different aspects of it enjoyable. Making videos for the last 2.5 years, I would probably say that I have enjoyed it less over the 2 years, but you know, that's pretty much the same for anything that you do. Wow. Okay. Cool. So I am gonna check out. Yeah, it was kind of great checking in with everyone here. Today's live stream is kind of different from the standard live stream. And I think I will hopefully see everyone next time. And yeah, take care, everyone.